What, you don't have video?
There we go.
There we go. I was like, what the? There we go.
What in the world? How you
What
been,
is
man?
going on? How you
How's
doing,
life?
man? Good to see you.
Been a
How's it
minute.
going? Yeah, do I sound okay? Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
I have you on my these are the mics that they give us from the radio station so that if we ever have to broadcast from home, if COVID ever gets to that point, and lots of radio people in our company have had to do their show from home.
You haven't though, right?
No, I've been doing it, going in to do it, and I love it. Actually, it's been the nice normal through all of this because when everything else is upside down, it's nice to actually get on the road. There's a little less traffic, you know, and you drive in, and I mean, I get to drive in at times when isn't stupid traffic anyway, but with more people working from home, it's kind of nice to go in. I'm in my studio by myself. There's very few people in the building when normally there'd be quite a number of people that work at the radio station, but everybody works from home, and even some of the shows are still working from home. Nothing from Q107 or Country 105. We're all live in studio. We're about 20 feet from each other in the building, but we're in our own separate studios.
No cats around you today?
No, the cats were. I had a call earlier, a Zoom call earlier, and they were meowing at the door. I let them in. They came in, sat on the chair behind me, and hung out. But I don't know. Anyway, whatever. They may. I don't know.
With life and everything, things have been well?
Yeah, just kind of getting through Christmas was really cool. It was different to do Christmas through Zoom, that was for sure. But we did it, and we had family on Zoom, and everybody opened their presents and showed the present, and it was kind of cool. It was actually weird because you sent the stuff to them, so to see them actually have it in hand was kind of cool. One of the things that I did for my wife and her mother. Do you want to start this, and I can tell you all these things?
Oh, it's already started. Yeah.
Oh, it's already started. Um, so one of the things I did for my mom, sorry, for my wife's mother and herself, was that Sarah Brightman. They're both huge Sarah Brightman fans, and a friend of mine that I had just reconnected with after all these years, she is Sarah Brightman's manager. And so I was able to get them some autographed pictures. And so I went through all these hoops and stuff like that to get it, and then completely forgot on Christmas morning.
Oh no.
So yeah, her mother forgot to open it. I forgot to give it to my wife. And so I'm like, oh my God. I went through all of that to make something really special that they could open at the same time.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, had one of those moments.
You got it after all though? She saw it? Your wife?
Yeah, so her mother sent a message and said, "Tell Dan I really love it. Thank you very much." And then I said to my wife, I said, she doesn't even know who the autograph's from. I said, "Here," and then I gave it to her. It was the exact same picture and autograph. And she goes, "Oh my God, Sarah Brightman!" And she wrote to her mom, "Sarah Brightman."
You
So
know,
anyway, very nice of Sarah Brightman to go through the trouble to help me out for Christmas.
you
So
know,
anyway,
one of your highlights for 2020 was the Porsche Taycan.
the what? The what?
Porsche, the trip that we
Oh,
did.
the Porsche Taycan. Oh my God. We had such a good time. You were in the back and we could smell you. And and then Justin, of course, Justin Haverard said, "Hey, we know that you love Porsches. He loves Porsches. I love Porsches. Do you want to go and take it for a test drive?" And I had never driven an electric vehicle in my life, and wanted to see what this was all about. And man, what a dream machine to get behind the wheel. And it's so funny because you can change the sound of how it sounds when it revs. So you can have the sound of the motor, or you can have like a spaceship sound, or like a, like it was so cool, and drove like a dream, very fast, hugged every corner. It was a dream to drive out to Canmore and back, and just had a fantastic time. So yeah,
So
definitely.
quiet.
What, so quiet? Like imagine if you could drive like that all the time. where it was just, and it would be nice to have one of those vehicles. I love that they've got the technology that is built for Canada as well, knowing how harsh the winters can be, and the fact that it does retain charge. I would have charge angst. I'd be worried that I'd run out of a charge here. But now with so many opportunities to charge your vehicle in so many different places, I still would be one of those things where I was like, why didn't they come up with a Porsche that had a little bit of gas in it, just in case you're a dumb, you know,
And we've all been there.
yeah, right. E just is not empty. E is enough.
We
That's
still
what it
got
stands
50
for.
kilometers.
That's it, right? I always like it because I know that German engineering with my car. It's like they've put an extra 50K in there just in case you're dumb enough to get right to the E. And I remember mentioning that when I was in the dealership one time. They're like, "No." I was like, "What? You mean I've been like coasting on fumes all this time?" Anyway, they were joking around with me, but I love that feature because when you're this you get locked into your driving or whatever you're doing, and then all of a sudden you forget.
Do
And
you
then
have you always loved Porsches growing up?
no, I remember our the first Porsche we got, which was a Cayenne. It was 3 years old. We happened to go look for a totally different vehicle, and it just happened to be on the lot. And I said to the guy, I said, "Can you tell me what this goes for?" And he goes, "Oh, well, when it first came in, it was this price." But he says, "But now it's like we've knocked it right down." He said, "We want to get it off the lot. It's been like a year and I don't even 4 months, 5 months." I said, "What? How did it not sell?" And he goes, "I don't know." He says, "Still under warranty, good mileage, blah, blah, blah." I was like, "Then what's wrong with it?" He goes, "Oh, nobody in Alberta knows how to drive a standard." I was like, "What?" I'm driving. My wife and I were at the time were driving Mini Cooper S's because we had come from BC, so we were in Vancouver, where that's a really good thing to have. And so she goes, "Let's take it for a test drive." We took it for a test drive, and scored this vehicle for literally dirt cheap because nobody they had it on the lot forever, and it had come from Montreal or something like that.
A
So that
stick
was our
Cayenne,
first.
though.
Yeah, it was a Cayenne, and then
What?
and
In stick?
yeah,
I didn't
yeah,
know.
it's great. I love it. I love driving stick.
Oh,
It's because you're really driving the car, right? And that was the one thing that when I drove the other one, it was like it's so weird to drive a car with so much power,
and
and you're not shifting it. You're because there's something about shifting in and out of turns and stuff like that. I could never do paddle shifters.
no,
It's
it's
not
not
the
the
same
same.
thing.
No.
No. So, but I've always had standard for many years. Learned standard. The first car I ever had was a 1973 Duster.
Oh,
Ooh, slant six. And it was my mother's, and she had no idea what she was driving, and it had handed down to me. And it became the shop class special. We used to work on it, and this thing was a beast. I mean, imagine. And I remember in a snowstorm one time hitting a guardrail and driving away from it. That's how crazy it was. Like it's just like they
the way
were built
cars
like
are built,
tanks.
it's like tanks. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like you couldn't destroy them, and they just lasted forever and ever and ever. And ended up driving it up to my parents. They had a farm, a property out in the middle of nowhere in Ontario. So went up and drove it out there and parked it because I was moving out west the very first time I did, and didn't want to get on the highway with it. And then so they used it as their country or their at the farm kind of car for driving around for many years. It's probably still up there. I don't know. So
To go look
anyway,
for it one day.
yeah, right.
What was your favorite car you've ever owned?
I had see the Porsche is pretty cool. I mean, I still look down at the insignia and go, "Am I really driving this?" But we got it for like less than what you would have bought a brand new car for.
What
So like
color
I
is
just
it?
it's black, just
Oh,
black on black actually. It's like
mm,
and it's It's just it's an SUV, and it was cheaper than buying a brand new SUV, which was crazy. So I was like, okay, awesome, let's do it.
And
It's
it
a
had
really
warranty.
well built vehicle, and now it's what, 10, 11 years old. So it was the 2010 at the time. So we bought it in 2013, but it's lasted real well for us. My favorite car, though, of all the cars, it's a tough decision because when I was living in the Okanagan, I had a Mitsubishi Eclipse. Mitsubishi sponsored me to drive this car, and then I purchased it because it was fully tricked out. It was such a ridiculously cool vehicle. I would say that orange with black and gray, and it was really beautiful, and it always shone in the sunshine. It was always clean. But the coolest vehicle I've ever owned was a 1958 convertible Volkswagen Bug in mint condition. I bought it here's a bizarre story. Bought it from a guy in Calgary. He owns a detail shop. I don't know if he's still working or if he's retired now, but at the time he had a detail shop. So I went and saw it. I bought it for nothing. Like, I think I bought it for $2,500 or something like that, right? And it was in great shape. But it was 1958 Volkswagen Bug and it was a 6 volt, right? Like you had to actually hold the key to the right, watch the glow light get brighter, 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 and then it would go. It was so cool, and it was like the me as a dork, having the top down drive, and every time I pull up to the lights, some grandma would be like, "When I was your age, I had one of those." It's like, okay, great, awesome. So so here I am, young guy attracting all the old babes. you know anyway, but nonetheless, I mean, that was funny because back in 58 I wasn't even born. But they had one of these cars, and I ended up selling it back to the same guy. And so he bought it at a profit, or not at a profit for me. He bought it for about, I don't know, an extra $1,000 or something, a couple of years later. And then he drove it out to the Okanagan, if I'm not correct, and parked it. And it's still there. So here's a bizarre story. So how many years have I been gone from Alberta? I come back to Alberta, and I'm at a restaurant having something to eat, and this guy comes up and he goes, "Are you Tarzan Dan?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "I'm the guy who sold you the 58 Volkswagen Bug." I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "Here's a picture of it." And so he sent me the picture and I was like, "Oh my God, it still exists. It's still around." So anyway,
That
of
is,
course, worth a lot more now. So
that's a collector's piece now. 58.
yeah, right.
If only we need to keep some of the cars. Yeah.
Right, right. I mean, if I could have a classic car, I'd still probably. There's a couple of SS Camaros from the '60s that just, I love so.
Dogs. I should have got a cat.
Yeah, right. They'll still come in and make noise. When I was on my last meeting, one of the cats came in and was like, "Wah, wah, 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 wah." I'm like, "Dude, I'm busy. I can't talk to you." They don't know you're on a Zoom call.
Do they
Pets.
ever pounce on you or jump on you?
No,
No.
no, no. They're pretty chill. When they were kittens, they'd climb, but now they're adult cats. So I mean, we have 4 cats. One that's elder, that's almost 17 years old, and still kicking, still doing great. And then 3 younger cats. I don't know how I got talked into that, but anyway. So, but they're
Well,
great. Love having
no.
cats. What's that?
You've been a cat lover all your life?
I like dogs as well, but cats are just so much easier to take care of. And with the amount outside of COVID, the amount that my wife has to travel, and a lot of times I'll join her, cats are just easier to take care of and to find people to take care of. So look at even sitting right here. See?
Oh my God, that is cool.
So this is from 007, of course. It's not Dr. Evil. This is the character that Dr. Evil was based on. And so the white cat, but you remember in Dr. Evil, or in
Austin Powers.
Austin Powers, the cat was nuked and then lost all his hair, and Mr. Bigglesworth was bald. So anyway, that's the character it's built on. But anyway, when we saw this, everybody was like, "Dude, that's so you," because I have a white cat. So we actually took a picture together. Same thing. Yeah. So one of these Halloweens, that's going to be my costume. Is like the thing down my, the scar, and holding the white
Sit
cat.
there, yeah.
Yeah.
So Dan, tell me a little bit about your story. Well, I know it, but a few others don't on here.
Like, what do you want to know?
How did you get started in radio?
In radio? Literally, I was a kid growing up in Toronto, listening to the radio all the time, and we were very financially challenged as a family. We didn't have a whole heck of a lot. And I remember thinking that if I could get into radio, if I could do radio or do something like that, I would get to go to concerts for free. I would get free music. And that's exactly what I thought. I enjoyed listening to a bunch of my radio heroes that I grew up listening to in Toronto. So they were a huge influence on me. But I was just a kid who, was kind of terrible at math. I was okay at English, but I was great at theater and drama. And when you think of radio in general, it's you're performing, right? You're on display and you're performing for thousands of people who can't see you. So you have to paint the picture. And so when you see me on a Zoom call, you're hearing me and seeing me. Whereas in radio, you have to paint the picture of what you're talking about in common terms, so that people will recognize what you're talking about and can possibly picture it in their mind. It's different than television, right? And then to transfer into television, I auditioned for the hit list. I was doing a music segment on YTV called Rock and Talk, and Laurie Hibbert hosted that. And I just went and would review an album. So whether, whoever it was at that time. And so I'd go and tell her how Lenny Kravitz's album was and who worked with him on the album and blah, blah, blah. And then they said, hey, we got this countdown show we're going to be doing. We're going to have an open audition. We'd love for you to try and audition for it. I was thinking, man, you got this face. Like, how am I going to go up against God's gift to the human race, like all these good looking people? And so I was shocked when I got the call back. And then I actually was working in radio in Toronto at 680 CFTR at the time. And I knew that we were doing a Janet Jackson contest. We were giving away an autographed Janet Jackson jacket. And I asked if I could borrow it for my audition. And they said, yeah, sure, as long as you bring it back in one piece and you don't screw it up. I was like, yeah, no problem, don't worry about it. So I went in for my audition, and when I was at the audition, I was like, hey, how you doing? It's Tarzan Dan. All right, coming up later on in the show, your chance to win this Janet Jackson autograph jacket. How cool is that, right? All you got to do is watch for me to swing through a video, and it just was off the top of my head. It wasn't something that I had planned. That became something that we did on the hit list every week. You'd write down the video that I swung through, and then send me a letter, and then we would pick a winner each week for the fan pack. And amazingly, we would do about 65,000 pieces of mail a year. And I would sign an autograph postcard back to every single person who wrote in. So it's so weird for me when you meet people, all these years later. They're like, dude, I still have my postcard. Or you meet somebody famous like a Nelly Furtado or an Avril Lavigne who grew up watching the show. I interviewed Rain Maida about a year ago, and we got talking about him being a huge hit list fan, even as Our Lady Peace was just starting out, and was becoming big. And I said, hold on, you're a rock band. Why were you? He goes, I loved Madonna. I had to see the next Madonna video. He says, you always knew what was going on. You always had an inside story on something. I was like, that's really cool. But literally, I just took radio and did it on TV, and was fortunate enough to get the phone call. And they said, I know you think you look goofy, but we'd love to have you do the show. And would you be interested? And I was like, are you kidding me? Really? This is going to happen? I'm going to have a national television show. So that spawned into national radio, as well as local radio, Toronto radio. And so I had worked as I had come up through the industry as a kid. I had worked in Calgary. I had worked in Vancouver, I had worked in Toronto, and then I went to the Okanagan, and then I went to Vancouver, and now I'm back in Calgary. It's so bizarre. Like it's like full circle. So,
One
but
day, one day
you know
they
what?
should do a
Been
throwback.
fortunate, very fortunate.
They should do a throwback with you on the show one day.
What's that?
We do the show one day as a throwback.
As a throwback, I actually have a picture somewhere. I can probably send it to you that you can put up on the screen. And I went at this is so funny for Halloween. People were like, "You need to go out as '90s you." I was like, "Well, I'm not going to go out and get candy as '90s me," but I went into the office as '90s Tarzan Dan,
I
like with
love
the
it.
hit list jersey and whatever else I was wearing. And then what happened is we had at that time about 6 to 9 guys in the office that were all bald. So I gave them all the jersey and we took a picture of them in the jersey and then said, all these guys at the office came as Tarzan Dan that year. So it was just a stupid joke, but everybody thought it was like legit and funny and
Do you still
whatever.
have some of that swag, like the hat?
Oh, all of it, man. All of it. I wish I had some here. I mean, outside of behind me, can you see that right there where my finger is pointing? That's a hit list award, an award for hit list because we had the hit list CDs as well, right? And they sold really, 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 really well, and the fans really supported that. I have some Spice Girls stuff and some Backstreet Boys stuff from
Oh,
that time and stuff. My wife said, "Put it up on the wall." So any of the awards behind me were from that time.
I was at a hookah bar in Calgary a few years back, and Kevin and Howie walked in. No one
No,
recognized them, and my girlfriend at the time was sitting beside me. She looks up, and I was like, "What?" She was like, "I don't know. That guy looks familiar." Kevin, right? Because he's got
yeah,
that. I was like, "Okay."
goatee.
Yeah, I had no idea. Anyway, so we're just continuing on conversations, and the owner asked me, "Hey Zach, we don't have any space here. Can they just sit with you and just share the table?" I was like, "Oh."
No way, really?
I was like, "Oh, fine." I had no idea. Sit there, and then she's looking at me and smiling, and she's like, "I think they're the Backstreet Boys." Like, what do you mean? And I didn't know that they were performing in Calgary.
Oh my God, that's so
And
funny.
yeah, they spent I think 4 or 5 hours just sitting with us, talking life, and
Nicest guys, right? Like just the most
parts.
genuine, real human beings. And that's it. After all these years, we're still real good friends. We, you know, we have stayed in touch. Uh, Even for well, the other yesterday, I actually tweeted Nick because I had found a picture of us in the basement. And I was like, "Hey, dude, look what I found in the basement in a box." And somebody had written back going, "You're about the only person who would have a picture of Nick in a box in the basement." You know, everybody else would have it displayed. Oh, this is the time I met him, and I was just like, just one of the many pictures that we've taken together. But yeah, we went down to Vegas and had a chance to see their Vegas show as well. We saw the Calgary show, and just the nicest, most genuine guys. And it's kind of cool to know that you broke them for Canada, and NSYNC, same thing, and Spice Girls and all that. Like just to be a part of that and have something that where's oh, you can't see it, but it's over here. Is a big diamond award for 3 different Backstreet Boys albums,
Wow.
and so like it's just that to me is really the fact that we're still keeping in contact, still friends after all these years.
And it says something. It's not just like, oh, you just interviewed them and that's it. It was a
I
relation.
always going into interviews with anyone, whether it was Metallica or like I've had a chance to interview so many incredible people in my career, whether it was Ricky Martin, Backstreet Boys, or it was Collective Soul or whatever. I had always wanted to be the guy they remembered, and so I always kind of tried to write an interview like that. And there are very specific ways during an interview to be able to connect to people, and that's one of the things that I really worked on through my career was to hopefully have people. Perfect example is interviewed Spice Girls and then happened to run into Jerry, I don't know, 7 8 months later, and she was like, "Oh my God, Dan." And I was like, how do you even remember me? She goes, how do you, it was so much fun. It was such a great time. We had such a good time with you. And so, when you have that kind of thing, or perfect, this is one of the weird things. So Collective Soul came to Calgary, and Ed and I had been friends. Ed, the lead singer of Collective Soul, we had been friends for eons, because as soon as we met, we just got along really, really well. Had a great time, and he told me a fantastic story. It was around Easter when I had interviewed him the very first time, and I knew his dad was a preacher, and I knew that his mom was the organist at church. And so I said, did you guys have to wear those really bad Easter suits to church? He goes, oh my God, my brother had a brown one and I had a baby blue one. And of course, this was amazing because how much he's never mentioned that in an interview ever, I would assume. And so it was just one of those things where we had a really great laugh, got along great. So fast forward to them playing in Calgary, and uh, I get this phone call. The phone's ringing, and my phone says Ed Roland, and I'm like, Ed Roland. He has the same phone number after all
Yeah.
these years. I hadn't talked to him in like probably 13, 14 years, unless it had been like a message on social media or something like that. But otherwise, and he's like, so are you coming to the show tonight? And I'm like, what? Holy crap. Used to
So,
anyways. And he says, yeah, man. He says, we need to hang out. So come early and we'll hang out and we'll chat and we'll see what's going on with each other. And it was, I think that's it. That's just one of those wonderful things. Like with Backstreet, we literally, our plane was late. We were rushing to get to the show in Vegas. We arrive literally 15 minutes before the show is about to go on. They go, come backstage. So we came backstage, hung out, and I'm like, guys, you're supposed to be on stage. Like, you get, don't worry, the fans will be happy. It's so good to see you. Da, 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 da. So all four of the five had been there. So it was great to see them. But AJ had no idea, he hadn't come into the room. So AJ and I are pretty tight. And so he didn't know that I was going to be there. So during the show, while they're talking, they go, are there any Canadian fans here? And the place goes bananas. And they're like, does anybody know who Tarzan Dan is? And it's like, yeah, yeah. So, and well, he was part of why we became so famous in Canada. And I was like, wow, and that was really, really, amazing to do at their Vegas show, for crying out loud. And then all of a sudden you see AJ losing his mind on stage, like, what the? Because they got a spotlight on me and I'm having a conversation back and forth. And it was just so funny,
this
you
gives
know.
chills. Like,
Yeah, it's so cool. Like, it's like one of those moments where, people are like, you're so lucky. And I'm like, I don't even like process it. It's just so weird, because I can't believe it's my life or it's something that's happened in my life. And so, like I always, if anything, during it, it's Santana. I got a chance to interview him, and I never got a chance to meet him in person. But I interviewed him, and we had such a funny time because we had such a great conversation. And then at the end, he's like, dude, I need to meet you. You got to be coming to the show. I said, oh, I'm getting on a plane tonight. I can't come to the show. I'm going somewhere else. And he's like, oh man, we had so much fun. And I said, well, one of these times we definitely have to meet in person. And it was just like, for me, that was validation. Like when somebody that you've interviewed said, wow, this was a lot of fun. Or wow, there was a J-Lo story. I've told this a couple times, but J-Lo was going to be coming in, and I had interviewed, this is at the time when her and Mark Anthony were just friends. Like, they were best friends. They weren't married. This is pre-marriage. I think she was married to the dancer guy at this time.
oh yes.
And so anyways, and so I said, I'm going to be interviewed. So I had Mark Anthony, and I said, I'm going to have J-Lo in next week. You guys are best friends. Tell me something she could never figure out that I would know about. And he looks at me, he goes, ask her about the time she ripped her pants on the way to a Menudo concert. That's all you got to do. And he goes, she'll never be able to figure out how, So I'm in the interview with J-Lo, and I tell her this, and she's like, she looks at me, she goes, you talked to my mom. I was like, nope, nope. If you're nice to me, though, I'll tell you who told me at the end. At the end, right? She's like, come on, tell me. And I'm like, no, you got to tell me the story. tells me the story about how she had skipped school, jumped the fence, caught her pants on the fence, ripped them, still went to the Menudo concert because of the fact that she had a crush on Ricky Martin. So anyway, great story, funny. At the end, she goes, "Okay, tell me who." And I told her, and sure enough, Mark Anthony wrote me and he goes, "She wants to kill me." But it was really funny. He goes, "But it was so good." And I bet it was amazing in the interview. And I said, "Oh, it was golden." So
That's amazing.
anyway, yeah, so it's one of those things I really like. Larry King was a like an amazing interviewer, and one of the things he always said, and Brian Lanahan, who
Have you
was
met him before, Larry King?
never,
No.
no, but I remember watching an interview with him on whatever it was, and Brian Lanahan as well. He was at City TV in Toronto, and he used to interview people. And I remember both of them saying, "Try and find out something that they can't figure out how you know it." Not something that's ever going to put them in a spot, because I would never do that. That's just, I hate when I see interviews like that where people think that they have full right to get into
Your personal
yeah, that's not what you're there for. But if you do ask interesting questions or fun questions or questions that are connective and give them an opportunity to be real human beings, you will get great stuff. Because, perfect example, yeah, I asked you about your dog, right? When your dog entered the picture. So if that's not part of this interview, then his dog came in and I asked him about it. But the thing is if you're talking to a celebrity, and perfect example, I was talking to one of the guys in Def Leppard, and he has an Instagram page for his dog, and it's called and it's Rockstar Stu. And Stu has pictures with everybody from Brian May to every rock star you can imagine, right? And so immediately I asked about him and I said, "What made you want to get an Instagram page for your dog?" "Well, I miss him so much when I'm on the road, so I get a chance to see him. And I think my wife loves him more than me." And I said, "Well, how did you end up getting him?" So what it does is it creates this, "Oh, well, we got him as a rescue." And then my wife named him Stu. And I don't remember the story behind the name, but there was just so much information. And yeah, we had another dog at one time, blah blah blah. And he told the whole story. It was a whole segment based on his dog, but something that he would never normally go to in an interview. And so that's one of the things that I really, as I was saying, I really used to work on, was trying to find just little tidbits that, whether it was something that, I remember when I interviewed Hootie and the Blowfish, right? And I found out one of the guy's mom's specialty was this particular dish. And so it's like, "Why is that your favorite? What is it about that?" Well, and it had to do about mom and about home and about the memory and the smell. And that's when you get them to be real people,
So
because
you
they're,
touch them here, right?
yeah, it's not a typical answer. It's, they're telling you about their life without you prying, right? And because I just, that's something I dislike, and it's not me, and I've always had fun. And so, like, whether it was awkward questions in a thing I used to do called the instant interview. The instant interview used to be like rapid fire, like name, shoe size, color of underwear, what's your dog's name, and they're all like this, and they're rapid fire inside a minute. And people would laugh because, "What's your favorite cartoon character? Who do you think is really cute, or who's your major crush?" Or, and people would react because every celebrity went through these questions. And so, because you're giving them the opportunity to just have fun, and it's not a lot of brain work, and it's not a lot of difficulty, having to answer the same question you were asked in the last interview, whether it's an interview day where you're just hitting radio stations, or whether you're in a room and they're all coming to you. And so I always tried to be memorable.
Do you pre-plan a lot of your interviews, or did you
Yeah.
ever?
Yeah, always, 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 always. Because that way, when you do one of the best things that you can ever be told by a celebrity is that you were so well prepared, they couldn't fool you, or they couldn't mess with you, or it's like, "Man, you did your research," or, "Man, you know a lot." And that always, and it can be like just throwaway stuff, like um, talking to talking to was it Steve Howe from Yes? He was in Yes when Owner of a Lonely Heart came out. He was in Asia when I'm hoping it's the right guy that I'm talking about here. Was in Asia when Heat of the Moment came out, and he was also in the Buggles uh, when Video Killed the Radio Star came out. It was part of all of those, and each of those songs changed the sound of the radio. Imagine being that person in one body. You went, I really hope I've got the right guy. I know it's, oh my God, uh, my brain. It's a weekend. I'm sorry, but
We'll add it in, the right guy.
okay, yeah,
We'll text
Dan,
you.
it's bing. It's like it hurts.
1 a.m. Ding.
Yeah, right. But that's the cool thing is that you can find, you can find information on the internet, obviously. But imagine back in the day when you didn't have the internet and you had to come up with an interview. So now you're trying to find out little things, even things about like who's the guy who always, like everybody, you're in a studio, you're recording an album, whatever. Now everybody records it on their home computer, right? Or their own home studio. But back then, if it was in a studio, okay, so who is the one who would fall asleep first in the pizza boxes, right? And every guy in a group would have one guy they would point to, always, never failed. Who was the biggest slob? Who was the guy that always had to be cleaned up after? Those kind of fun questions that are just, throwaway. But when you throw it at somebody like Metallica, that's when it's, or, you're interviewing Mariah Carey. Mariah Carey, I remember one time I was interviewing her for an album, and I said, "There's a clip out there too." One second, my cat's meowing, so I can hear him. And I said to Mariah, I looked at her and I said, "What's your favorite song on the album? I know that there's lots of hits, but what's your favorite song?" She points to this one right here. This one right here, Dan. And I look at it, and it's called "Underneath the Stars." And I, being me, being a goof, go, "Underneath the stairs? What?" And she looks at me, punches me, and says, and, and says, "Underneath the stairs, that's where I'm putting you after this interview." And I mean, it was just, you know what I mean? I totally was trying to pull a fast one on her, and she thought it was fun. It wasn't heavy. It wasn't. And then I was, "Oh, okay, Underneath the Stars. Oh, it's so romantic. Tell me why it's your favorite song." She's going to have a story. She's going to have a story
What
because
made,
it is her favorite song. You've
what
asked her to tell you.
Oh, absolutely. What made Larry King special to you? Like, what is it about him that he's still around and he's still some?
Because he'd ask, questions that weren't difficult,
Mhm.
but he knew how to draw somebody out of themselves, and that's what I always thought was really cool. When I watched him, I would always be like, how did he get that person to give him that little bit of information, or talk about their parents, or talk about their family life, or their, growing up on a farm, or growing up, being the kid who rode the subway or didn't have it. There's so many of those stories. Living in your car, and it's like, when you interview Steven Tyler, you had a hit called "Living on the Edge," but why wasn't it called "Living in My Car"? you know, because that's how you probably started, right? Because, and I remember his reaction was, "You are so right," and it's just because they've never thought of it that way, and so it's always fun in that way
Have you
to
ever got
just have fun.
starstruck by somebody?
Um, the funniest is a couple of times. I mean, I would love. There's people on my list of people I would love to meet. Paul McCartney being one of them, just because he's a god in the music industry. But one person that I was starstruck over, and he turned out to be the nicest guy in the world. And me being a kid, I grew up being a huge fan of Styx, massive fan of Styx, loved Styx as a kid growing up, and went and saw their concerts. One of my first concerts was a Styx concert. So Dennis DeYoung, who is no longer with the band, he's on a solo career, and Gowan has taken his place in the band Styx. And I've gone and seen them with Gowan, and they're amazing, just as because it's all the all the guys. But I this is when Styx was still with Dennis. I was sitting. So you imagine, I've always thought, wouldn't it be cool to meet him? So I'm sitting in the office in the music office reading a music magazine before my show in Toronto. And this guy walks around the corner and he goes, "Excuse me." And he goes, "Do you know what time it is?" And I look up and I go, "Your dog barked right at the right time."
The perfect time.
Yeah, so Dennis Young, so I gave him the time, and then he had said, "I'm going to be doing an interview down the hallway at your sister station, which is Q107 Toronto, which ironically is the sister station of where I work right now, which is Q107 Calgary." And I said, "Dude, you got to come in," because "Show Me the Way" by Styx at that time was a really big hit. And so I said, "Please come in on my show." And so it turned out that he was doing a version of Jesus Christ Superstar at the big theater downtown, and he was playing Pontius Pilate. He says, "Do you want to come to the show?" And I was like, he says, "I'll get you tickets." I'm like, "You're Dennis freaking DeYoung from Styx." Like, and I'm just this little kid. And I said, "I just feel," and then he goes, "Well, we're playing a concert this weekend. If you want," he says, "Here's my email. Hit me up and I'll get you tickets to the concert." I'm like, "What?" Like, this is not even happening. Like, I can't even fathom it. So for me, that level of rock star just being so nice to me and treating me so well, I couldn't even fathom it. And then I said to him, I said, "I feel like such a nerd and a geek. I can't even believe I'm like this messed up that I don't even know how to talk to you." And I said, "I talked to so many celebrities, and Brian May was in a couple days ago, and I had a great conversation with him. Steve Perry, all these guys. Like, why am I losing it?" And he goes, "You know what? Same thing happened to him with Paul McCartney, and he had met Paul McCartney, and literally was speechless, didn't know what to say." So
Is there aura around these people or energy that you feel sometimes? And is that why it makes them who they are? Or is it, or do you just finally realize, hey, they're just like me?
for me, I think the funniest thing is that I rarely get like like that, but I get excited about getting the chance to talk to them, because that's at probably at one moment, unless you get to interview them again. That you like with Mariah, I interviewed her 4 or 5 times, through my career. So Backstreet, endless number of times, NSYNC, number of times. So it just depends, but in the end, they are, like you said, real people, just real nice people. And so that was one of those things that he just became this guy that was such a nice guy. And I was like, man. And the nicer they are, or the more usually, the bigger they are and the longer career they've had, the nicer they are. So I remember I had to interview Michael Bublé's sister for some charity event, because that's what she's involved in. And so I didn't even know this. It just happened to be that, and she goes, "You know who my brother is?" And I was like, "No." She goes, "Michael Bublé." I was like, "Get out of here." And I said, "That's so cool." I said, "I love Michael Bublé." And she goes, "No, we used to watch you on the hit list." And I'm like, "Wait a second. This is not happening." No, it's like perfect example. So this I told this story the other day. So for me, hockey celebrities, hockey stars are it, right? And especially if they're old school. And so I'm on a plane flying to Ottawa. Very few people on this plane. It's a late night flight, and I'm flying to Ottawa to go do something for YTV. And what happens is there's two guys, very big guys, sitting in front of me, and I haven't. Usually, I had a Sharpie on me, something to sign, whatever, because you get asked for an autograph or whatever. I had nothing. These two huge guys sit down, and they had just had the inductions into the Hockey Hall of Fame the day before, and I was like, "Man, that looks like Peter Mahovlich and Frank Mahovlich, like stars of the Montreal Canadiens, the Leafs." I was losing my mind. I'm like, "That's got to be him." Then Peter reads something in the paper, leans over to his brother and goes, "Hey, Frank, check this out." I was like, "Oh my God, it's them. It's them. Holy crap, it's them." So I get up and I walk in front of them, and I turn around and go, "I just heard you guys talking. Don't want to be a jerk. Don't want to be that guy. I don't even have something to have you sign something with. It's just an honor to meet you both. I was the 1972 Canada Cup, the Canada Russia series. Oh my God, I can't even believe I'm even in the same space where I get to breathe the same air as you. And without missing a beat, Frank looks at me and looks at Peter and goes, "You know who this is?" And he goes, and Frank goes, "He's the guy from TV." I'm like,
Oh,
"Are you kidding me?" Anyways, because he's that Tarzan guy. And I just
oh
was
my.
like dumbfounded, like fully just like this can't be real. So it's that when that happens, or when you meet somebody that I remember when Nelly Furtado came in for very first interview. And a couple of times we've seen each other a couple of times since, but she was like, "I did not win that crisscross skateboard I rode in for." She wanted to win that. And I was like, "Oh my gosh," because I watched you. I said, "Wait a sec. You were the Nelly kid from Nanaimo? There was only one Nelly kid that used to write me. And so it's a name that would stick with you, right? Nelly from Nanaimo." And it was her. And I
Oh,
was like, "Oh my God." She goes, "Yeah, you were the very first fan letter I ever wrote." I'm like, "This is bizarre."
where did
So
the name Tarzan come from?
we had it was funny. I was working in Calgary. I was known as Dan Freeman, and it was at AM 106. And Andre Maisonov and a bunch of other announcers. Andre has since passed, and rest his soul. Great guy, and he and I and a bunch of other guys had gone out to, I think it was Banditos at the time, something like that. We're all out just doing what we're doing, and you meet people because they see your radio station jackets or whatever. And this person came up and said, "Oh my God, your show is like a jungle. It's untamed." And I was like, "Oh, really?" I said, "What's in the jungle?" Just being me. And they were like, "Lions and tigers and cheetahs." And I went, "Hi, Tarzan Dan. Nice to meet you." Right off the top of my head. And so as soon as that happened, Andre um, said the next day on the air, he introduced me as Tarzan Dan. "And we're changing your name. It's going to be Tarzan Dan. Tarzan Dan Freeman." I was like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah, man, that's what we're doing." And it was on air. So I was like, "Okay, I'll take it." And
Done deal.
it became a career. So, full props to him for having the wherewithal to convince me to use it, because he thought it was such a great name. And because people already knew who Tarzan was, or at least the word. And so, like if your name was Ferocious Fred,
There we
ferocious is a word we already know. Fred is an easy name. So they say that if you have a word that people know already, and you have a one syllable name, so Tarzan Dan, it's easier to remember.
Zack Attack.
Right? Right?
Dan, was it weird for you to like sign your first autograph? Were you like, what?
I don't even remember the first time I did.
But has it
Um,
been weird at times? Like, or did you ever have like a reflection? Like, what was
I've
that?
had, I think that, like perfect example is what we were talking about, all this stuff behind me and around the room here. Um, I still don't even fathom it. It's My wife said, "Put it up, remind yourself of what you've been
Fine.
able to, create and continue to do because you love it so much." And I feel very fortunate beyond belief that I get to get on the radio, goof around, get paid for it, play great music, and connect with people, and been doing it all. And I don't know why I was drawn to that. So even getting, I remember when I was a kid and asking radio DJs for their autograph, and being invited in a couple of different times when I was young to go watch radio shows be done. And I just thought there was something magical about the way they could talk about something, and they'd make it funny, or they'd see the funny side of it, and or listening to them, and you always felt like you were like, "Man, if I met that guy at the cottage, I'd have a beer with him." And that was what I tried to do, was just kind of take these four or five guys that I grew up listening to and put it into one. So when somebody would ask me for my autograph, it's almost like you want to sign all the other guys' names, because that's who influenced me. Not, I'm just kind of the parrot of good things.
Do you communicate with those guys, the five guys?
A couple of them have passed, and still keep in touch with a couple of them. Yeah,
Wow.
and they're wonderful human beings, and great. And I got to work with all of these guys, right? Like as a kid, being a fan, and then growing up, and then this guy Roger Ashby in Toronto, or Mike Cooper in Toronto, to work on the radio at the same time as these guys who I thought were gods, and be friends with them. And it was just so, so weird. Or I remember when I ended up back in Toronto on the radio, after a couple of years of doing just television, and Mike Cooper sending me a note from he was doing morning somewhere, sent me a note and just said, "It's so great to have you back on the radio in Toronto. Your biggest fan." And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And I wrote him back, because back then you'd write a letter. You wouldn't email. And like, "Dude, that is so cool. I'm so, like, I don't even know what to say," because you become this little kid, the kid that listened to the radio, or just like, watched hockey, or, all
You
that. So
missed it all where like you could write letters and you receive mail. Now it's all like emails or direct message on Instagram.
it's, what? It's funny to me, because I think that it's so weird. Like, I think back then, I wish I had, if I, how do I want to say it without screwing it up? I wish I had known that Nelly Furtado, I could see into the future, would be that, or Rain Maida, or whoever. So I would have kept their letters, right? Nowadays, it's just a quick, I get excited when Mark Hamill likes something of mine on social media. It's like, oh my God, it's Luke Skywalker, and I remember sending a picture of Chewbacca in a collar outside of a vet hospital, and maybe they should have named him differently, because with the word chew, no wonder he needs a collar. Chewy or whatever.
Yeah.
And he wrote back, that was really funny. And I'm like, oh my God, like, holy crap. And so I'm still that guy who can't believe it when it happens. But I wish that, there's a part of me that wishes there was that more tangible, just like music. I think there's a reason why LPs are, outside of the sound and the warmth of the sound, are coming back, is because outside of the presence, it's the tangible physical that you're handling and holding in your hands. And you can read the lyrics, or you can read who was on the album, who worked together, who influenced them. In the thank yous, they'll thank, any number of people. So, like, oh, ow. Just smacked my hand
Oh,
on my
yeah, that was
desk by
great.
accident. This is what happens when you're part Italian and you talk with your hands.
Yeah, right.
Ouch. Anyway, yeah, that's a matter for you, eh? So, like, when you see that, somebody worked with somebody, or this band played on this person's album, or wrote songs for them or with them, and so that's always kind of cool in that respect. So I think the tangible, whether it was CDs or albums, was always really, really cool. So just like with letters, there is something cool about getting it. I used to tell my mom when she was still alive, I used to say, if you think of me, send me a card, write whatever you're thinking, just so I can keep it. And, and I think that that's one of the things we've lost by becoming so electronic, where it's just, a quick inbox message or any of that kind of stuff.
Happy birthday. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I love getting a card. I love getting a Christmas card. I never get Christmas cards, but we get a couple, and that means a lot. There's something about the tangible, the physical, that we're missing by going fully digital.
When my mom was alive, she would make sure that I always drew a card for her. Never went and bought one.
Oh,
Yeah.
what a great what a great idea.
Looking back,
Because
I had bought one once. She was like she was so disappointed. I was like, Mom, I'm like 24 or 5 at the time. I don't want to keep drawing
yeah,
cards.
right. But that kind of thing, I can totally see why she would want that, because it was a connection to you and your heart. Like, it came from the heart, didn't come from a store. it came, and you found what it needed to say. I can totally, man, what a great idea. I think that it would be a great thing for parents to take that to heart. They like the finger paintings and stuff like that on the fridge. But what if it was a regular? I'm going to mention it to a buddy of mine who has two kids, two young kids, and say, you know what, this would be a really good. They have to make mom a card, and for years, and she'll keep every single one of them, and then
You know
she'll
what? I
pull them
still
out.
have all of them. She's kept them all, and I still have them here now. So.
Really, eh? Is your handwriting still suck?
Oh, terrible! It's terrible.
So you should have been a doctor, but instead you're online. Okay, got it.
I don't know if I'm good, but still something with IT, like most Indians.
Hey man, you know way more than I do. So in that respect, like, hey, you went into something that you felt very comfortable in, and you're very good at, and you have the opportunity to influence people. It's something that baffles me. I wish people would follow me on social media.
I'm surprised you're not verified yet. You've got to get verified.
You know what? I have put in for verification a couple of different times, and they say I don't qualify. I'm verified on Twitter, and I didn't even know I was. That's how clued in I am. And then I tried to on Instagram, and they said I didn't meet the whatever, so maybe I don't have enough followers or whatever.
No, it's not that. Do you have a Facebook page?
Yeah, I have a Facebook page too.
Try it. There's a button there. Get your Facebook page verified, and if you do, 48 to 72 hours later, they'll verify your Instagram.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna have to show me how to do that, because they've never. I have my photography page. I don't have a Tarzan Dan page. I have Tarzan Dan page saved, but I've never actually opened it because I didn't want anybody to take it. So I have it, but me on Facebook, I have as Dan Freeman, and then I had to send them a bunch of stuff so I could actually have Tarzan Dan in brackets, so they realized that I was who I was. But I've never been verified. Crazy.
If your parents were around today, what would they say about you, looking back from this kid in Toronto, the way you grew up, and what you've done in your lifetime?
I remember when I was at Chum in Toronto, and my dad, prior to him passing away, he was so ecstatic that I was going to work at Chum, because when he was a kid growing up in Toronto, he listened to Chum. And so all of a sudden I was validated, even though I had worked in, on TV, radio, and he was proud of me. It was the fact that when I got to the station he listened to when he was young and growing up, and he told me, oh, Joe Baliska, he was so funny. Oh my God. And I was like, wow, that's crazy, but he was so proud. And I remember him saying that, I'm just proud of you, son. And that was, for a father to say that is incredible. And my mom, she was always a fan, and always asking me to play Debbie Boone, which I never played. I think I did play it for her once, because she loves You Light Up My Life. That song, and it was her favorite song. I remember she had the 45 and she would play it ad nauseum, and then I gave her the album so that she could listen to more songs, so that we as kids didn't want to rip the stereo apart. And oh, it's really nice, but I really like this song. So she put this song on repeat, and I was like, Mom. So I told that story and then played her the song the one time on Chum, and she was so ecstatic and thought it was a hilarious story. So I think that they were always very supportive. In the beginning it was like, what are you doing? You're going to do radio? You need a good job. You need to do construction. I was not fit out. My dad was a foreman and a marble and tile set guy, and I was not set out for that at all. Not me. Nope. I got soft hands. No calluses. So anyway, but he was a good guy. Same with Mom. So
the greatest thing people can do is believe in you, and it's priceless.
Sure. Even if you're going to fail, you're going to learn something.
Oh yeah. So, like trying out this podcast is so new to me. It's so different. And you don't like a lot of podcasts. You don't.
I don't listen to a lot of podcasts.
We briefly have talked about it. We've
yeah. Well, you and I had talked. I don't like talking about myself, even though I know I can talk. Is the it just feels very self-indulgent to me. But I understand that someone might be curious or you wonder where the idea to be on the radio was, or what inspired me. Um, but I've always, I don't know, just I don't care about my own opinion, so why why would I care about other people's? I don't know. I just it's not my thing, but that doesn't mean that it's not popular. And people have said, oh, you need to do one, or you need to interview all the old stars and stuff like that. And I was like, eh, eh, you
It
know,
is what it is.
it is what it is, But I mean, I could, but I don't think that my thought is why would people care what I have to say, And so that's why I'm always shocked when I'm asked.
Is there still days that, or is there days that you don't want to go to work or don't want to talk? And how do you
There,
overcome?
with anybody, there's going to be days where you're just like, oh man, do I have to do it today? But 99.9% of the time, I can't wait to crack the mic and have fun. So, that says something about, being fortunate enough to have a career that has been long and enjoyable. And I feel very, very grateful every day that I get to do what I always wanted to do when I was a kid, and still get to entertain people. And when somebody goes, oh my God, I almost drove off the road because I was laughing so hard at something you said, or I can't believe you think of it that way, or you see things that way. There are always going to be people who dislike what you do, which is fine, because that's okay. It's taste driven. You're allowed to change the channel. It's okay. If you don't like me, you don't like me. But if you like me,
Yeah.
I hope you like me and you stick around. So,
Do you have to train your voice often?
nah, no, no. I'm just always had this kind of timbre to my voice, and
I was sitting in the back on the webcam. Like I felt like I was listening to the radio. I was just like sitting back there.
there are people that just sound like the radio, right? I don't know. And there's other people. I don't know. I've never really thought of it. It's not something I gave conscious thought to, like where I was like, oh yeah, because when you say, hey, pretend like you're on the radio, and everybody, if I ask you, you'll be like, hey, this is a great song from blah 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 blah, and it's like that's not how we talk on the radio, but but it's the perception of it, because they're thinking, well, it's showbiz,
Probably
and
not that. No.
yeah, it's not that at all. It's just it's somebody on the radio. Like it was funny. I did recently on social media. We did a thing where it's like, tell us you're from Calgary, but don't tell us you're from Calgary. And somebody had written about going tobogganing. Well, first of all, somebody had said going down the Pascapoo Hill. And the first thing that hit me was, I remember when we used to joke around about when we went to the Stampede, and we'd eat enough Stampede food that we would all have a Pascapoo. Right? But it was like, and people were like, oh my God, what a memory. And all these people called us like, oh my God, Pascapoo. And then somebody else said, oh, I remember going on my toboggan down the CFCN hill. And I was like, oh, I did that on a crazy carpet before they had built all the houses for the Olympics. It was just a straight, really steep hill. And literally, I should have wore a helmet. That was like a head injury waiting to happen. But everybody did it. So it's like, for me,
I think that
when
was
you,
just at Stu Hart's house.
right? Yeah, I think his was on the other side of
Oh,
the
okay.
highway, which you wanted to stop before you went across RC. So, but it was just it's really cool to just kind of get on the radio and talk about real stuff that connects with people. Whether it's um, you're listening to a Bon Jovi song, and this song reminds you of a certain period of time, or because I have memories just like you do. And it's funny that music is like that. It triggers these memories, positive, negative, whatever, um, and are so ingrained that it's like opening a door. And to me, to this day, I heard the other day I played the Jam, Town Called Malice. I hadn't played it in years, but immediately it was like click, open the door, and I knew the intro of the song and just
It
did
takes
it.
you back to the time, those memories and moments.
Yeah. And I totally felt like that time when it was on the radio the first time. It's like, Down Called Palace. And I cranked it and listened to it because I was like, man, I haven't heard this in forever. So, you're going to hear Bohemian Rhapsody more often and stuff like that. But when you get a chance to hear something like that, you're just like, wow. So for me, every day getting on the radio is a new adventure.
I'm from Alberta.
Yeah.
Now you're pretty much an Albertan.
I've been in Alberta a lot of years. Like I was here from 83 to 88, left after the Olympics.
Okay, yeah.
So I was the voice of the Calgary Olympics for CTV, which was really cool. Um, and then I went to Vancouver to do radio there. And then I came back here in, when did I come back here? 7 years ago, I think it was.
Oh, okay.
7 or 8 years ago now. So I was working in Vancouver. So,
did you ever watch Buckshot and Benny?
Oh, of course, man.
How many?
I did a thing with Buckshot. Buckshot did some Christmas thing a couple of years ago, and I ended up introducing him and interviewing him. And it was the coolest. Benny the Bear. Oh my God. Buckshot.
16 chickens and tambourine.
Him and his songs. Did you get his album?
No, I didn't.
No, he has. Oh my God. When we were there, everybody was singing along with his songs, and I'm like, oh my God. Anyway.
Well, Dan, we got to get going here, but we got to do a segment, a part 2 on this, and perhaps we can talk about your artistic side and some of the things that you're doing here in Calgary and actually around the world.
Because you actually want to see me in a tutu, right? That's...
Hey, Dan, before we head out, though, can you do an outro of Tarzan Dan's YTV?
Tarzan Dan's YTV. Man, I haven't done this in a while. Okay. Shoobity bop bop, the wang, the bing bong, the biddly boop boop, baby. There you go. Our Canadian podcast with Zach and Dan. It was a lot of fun. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it.